I'm joined today by the lovely Jackie Leiper from Scottish Widows, who will be definitely more authoritative than myself to help answer those questions, and Nyomi from the blog Nyomi to help get this conversation started. So let's just dive straight in, guys. And Nyomi, you're a working mum. Mm-hmm. How's your pension looking?
Well, I thought it was looking okay. I think it's reasonably okay, but when I was preparing for this, I compared it to my partner's, and that was quite shocking. Yeah, he's doing a lot better than me.
And you've been working with Scottish Widows for the last couple of months, haven't you, about Scottish Widows had Pension Awareness Day in September. Have you found that really helpful and informative? Like, do you feel like you know more now?
Yeah, I think you often just put off looking at your pension because it's a little bit confusing, and it's kind of, you've got so much to do. It's a busy old world right now, so you think, I won't worry about that. But doing the work with Scottish Widows has like kind of forced me to have a look at it, and I recommended to my followers just take half an hour out and see where you're at and see how you're comparing. So I do feel a little bit more on top of it now. Like, I feel like I have a better understanding. But yeah, I do need to make some plans if I'm gonna not have to rely on my partner in old age. Just worrying.
And Jackie, that kind of phrase, saving for retirement, can strike fear into some people, and for others it's a real call to action. How do you help people deal with that?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, saving for retirement sounds a long way off. You know, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you've got more immediate priorities, particularly with your finances, paying off debt, trying to get on the housing ladder. When children come along, women tend to take the lead in paying for that childcare. So quite often women find other things to put their money into, which is why we start to see, even in the 20s and 30s, when women and men are earning the same, women are still saving less into pension than men.
Jackie's just described my life there. That's exactly my life.
Yeah. And it's, I think the whole pension system is still geared around a sort of male breadwinner model. You know, it's all based on your earnings, and it's all based on you being full-time in employment, which of course men are more likely to go through their career full-time employment, whereas women will take time out, work more flexibly, perhaps even take a career break completely when children come along, and so on. So those are some of the differences, I think, that particularly affect women versus men.
That leads perfectly into our first question. Hi Jo, thanks for coming along. She says, my husband works and I'm a housewife. Should I be paying into a pension, or will I be okay to live on his?
So I would always say try and get some money in your own name, so she can save. Jo can save into a pension even though she isn't working. There is a limit, so it's just over £3,600 a year. Quite often what you find in that circumstance is couples do think, well, actually I can just rely on my husband's pension. And that's fine if you stay together and have a long happy life together, but we often see that, you know, if women divorce, quite often the pension is neglected and women forget that they actually have a claim on their husband's pension in those situations.
And while we hope you all have happy relationships and marriages, I mean, think ahead. You never know. So you think that women face more barriers to saving than men?
Oh, definitely. And I think we did some research a couple of years ago, not just looking at the statistical differences in terms of how much men and women were saving, but also sort of confidence levels and women's attitude. And women, I think, are a bit more open about feeling less confident. So they will say, I don't really understand pensions. I find it very confusing. There's a lot of jargon in a lot of the material. You know, pension statements and some of the information that comes through can be quite off-putting. And I think, therefore, women find reasons to sort of just disconnect from that and put it off and think, I can think about that at another time. So I think there's lots of reasons why, not just the ability to save, but also it just feels too complicated.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. So every year Scottish Widows actually conduct research into this, and research into why women and retirement to assess the unique challenges that women face. This year was your 14th year, is that right?
Yeah.
And they partnered with lovely Mumsnet. So why do you focus on women in that retirement path?
So it all started, I think, when we started doing some research across both men and women, and we started to see some quite fundamental differences. So that first report, as you say, was 14 years ago. And if you think about our company, Scottish Widows was set up to help women. It was, it's more than 200 years old. It was set up to help the widows of the Napoleonic Wars. So when you start to see some differences now, now we're much more known for pensions, you go, oh my goodness, actually, these gaps are quite amazing. And we've seen some improvements over the years, particularly as auto-enrolment kicked in 5 years ago. More women have been brought into the scope of retirement savings, and I think that's a real positive, but there's still a good bit to go in terms of getting people to save the right levels and on a consistent level of savings for retirement, and not just see it as something that is a long way off. The more you can save when you're younger, the less you'll actually have to save overall, the sort of compound interest effect of that money working for you.
But isn't that kind of the problem with so many things in your 20s? Like, it all feels far away, and it's all well and good to say to a 22-year-old who's just started their first job, you need to be thinking about the future, you need to be saving. Great, you've got your first ever paycheck. Now take 20% of that and put it in a savings account. I mean, nobody's listening.
Nobody does that.
So
that's
how do
right.
you have that conversation?
So I think the real opportunity is starting small. If you think about auto-enrolment, the contribution levels are pretty small, and you are getting free contributions from your employer. So that's where I would start. Make sure you know what your workplace, if you're in work, what your workplace pension scheme is, how much you need to contribute, and find out how much your employer is going to contribute on your behalf. So at the moment, auto-enrolment contributions are at 5%, they go up to 8% from next April, and your employer's paying 3% of that for you on your behalf. Now actually a lot of employers will do more generous contributions, but it's on a matching basis. Mm-hmm. So although if you might think I've got other things I could spend my money on, that is free money from your employer that could be going into your pension and working on your behalf. So that's a good place to start.
And we all love a freebie. I mean, freebie's great. What were the kind of big revelations that came out of this year's report for you guys?
So I think the biggest revelation for this year's report is the gap for younger women in their 20s. So 25% of women in their 20s have zero savings at all, no retirement savings and no other savings, and effectively couldn't last even a month if an emergency came along and they had to find some money for a repair or something like that. So one of the recommendations from this year's report is, should we allow women, or men for that matter, to be able to dip into their retirement savings when they do have an emergency, and would that remove a barrier that is stopping people from saving? So perhaps not see it as some far off thing, but as actually a retirement fund that could be accessed.
I think that would be a game changer.
Yeah.
Certainly for me and my friends, I think that would make it so much more, we would just want to do that a lot more. It would make so much more sense to us.
Yeah.
There is something about when you have kids as well, I think that is kind of a turning point in your mindset, because you do automatically start thinking further ahead, as much as you're just trying to survive day to day. Because especially in the current climate, you're thinking, well, what if they want to go to university? How the heck am I going to pay for that? And you do want to get on the housing ladder and things. So anything that kind of, I think it is different when you're into 22, but obviously if you don't have your first child till 29, you've missed out on potentially 7 years worth of savings. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of our statistics that we used in one of the previous reports is 2% more saved in your 20s would give you a 6-year career break from saving in your 30s.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of women, when we do that, say, oh, if I'd known that, I would have found that little 2%.
Yeah.
Because the compound interest in the fund that would build up for you would allow you to take 6 years out if you were not working at all over that period and still have the same retirement.
That's a huge takeaway point.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm just going to pause us here because we've had quite a few questions in. Emma says, how can we decrease the pension gap between men and women? Just before you jump into the answer, just to substantiate Emma's question, the pension gap extra coffee needed, it's a Monday. At every age, men's savings are much higher than women's. On average, men hold nearly twice the amount of savings and investments that women do. Men have on average £61,000, whilst women only have 33. I mean, the gap is massive. When I first read this, I was thinking, oh yeah, it'll be like 5-10%. I mean, that is huge.
Yeah.
So how can we decrease that gap?
So decreasing the gap, so there's a couple of things I would say. So we can't talk about the pensions gap without talking about gender pay gap. So one of the biggest issues are the gender pay gap. So women, right from when they come out of university or just go into work, generally will earn less than men. So the gap starts right there. So trying to get, I guess, greater parity and women into some of the higher paid roles has got to be one of the areas that would help reduce the pensions gap. But that aside, it's got to be around removing some of the penalties, some of the motherhood penalties when you take time out to have children. So, you know, a lot of the things that we're looking at as a provider and some of the other industry organisations are around just that education point. How can you be more aware and help women make decisions at those key points in their life when they stop to have children, when they go part-time? Even going part-time, can you and your husband look at the contributions and even it out so that you're not being penalised just because you're earning less over that part-time period? So that sort of making conscious choices and getting information at those key points, I think, would be quite a crucial area.
Samantha says, what's the most unusual way you've heard of somebody saving for retirement? Do you have any non-traditional ideas? I'll ask you both that.
Oh, my colleague at work, she sold a house and bought a much bigger, grander house, and that is her retirement plan, is that when she's older she will sell that house and downsize, and I thought that was quite unusual.
Property is probably the most popular thing outside of actual saving and a pension. A lot of people say, oh, my house is my pension.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what other things? I think investing in businesses is another one. So people that are self-employed will say, my business is my pension, I'm going to sell my business. I'm not sure they're particularly unusual. I'm trying to think of, have I heard of any more unusual things? And I think all of these things are relevant. You know, it is about preparing. I always think retirement, when you want to stop working, is about how do you replace that salary?
Yeah.
What is your salary in retirement? And, you know, our research would say people expect to have £24,000 a year. So that's a lot of savings to do.
Yeah.
Depending on how long you're happy to keep working. So.
So Tanya has asked, had a good final salary pension for 12 years. Now been out of work raising children, what can I do in these years before I return to work? I'm planning on leaving previous pension alone and not transferring it to a new scheme.
So I think there's two things I would say. So first is make sure that you are claiming your child's benefit national insurance stamp. So there is a situation that if your joint earnings in the household are over a certain level, that you don't actually get the child benefit, but you do need to actually go through the process of claiming it but not receiving it, if that makes sense. Otherwise you do not get your national insurance contribution towards your state pension. Lots of people don't know about that, lots of women don't know about that, and they just assume, oh well, our earnings are over the 60,000, therefore we don't qualify, but you do actually need to register for it, and then the system will work out that you're not entitled, but you at least get your national insurance contribution made on your behalf. That's a really important point. And the second thing is what I was saying earlier around, you can still contribute into a pension, albeit to a much lower level, but you can keep some contributions going if you can afford that with your husband up to the 3,600 mark, where at least you're still accumulating some savings as well as your final salary.
There you go, Tanya. Top tips for everyone else as well. I certainly didn't know a lot of that.
That national insurance one is a really poorly known, is quite poorly communicated. And you can go onto the government website and it is all explained, but it's not something that people are very aware of.
I've never heard anybody talk about it.
No. We're all learning today.
Yeah.
Sarah says, how much do you typically put away if you get a private pension? Is there a recommended amount or percentage?
So we normally recommend 12% of your earnings, which is quite a lot, but that's over your sort of average career time. Actually, there is sort of more research saying actually contributions probably need to even go beyond that, near the 15%. So it's a lot. I
think that would scare a lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah. Naomi. I think those figures, people go, oh my goodness, but actually it's back to what I was saying earlier, the more you save when you're younger, the better that accumulates over the long term.
I guess it's a little and often rather than sort of you reach 38, 39
and suddenly go.
And it shows the benefit of those company pensions as well, where they're matching it, because you can get closer to that amount by putting less in.
Absolutely. A lot of our clients would do a 6% and a 6% contribution structure, so there you're at your 12%, you're paying 6%, plus you've got tax relief as well.
It's fantastic. Sarah says, what age should you start paying into a private pension?
As early as possible, I say. So, interestingly, auto-enrolment at the moment starts when someone's 22, but actually the government are reviewing that and are looking to bring that down so that you can start to qualify the minute you start working.
Yeah, because I remember I had my first job at 16.
Yeah, well, why should you not get a contribution?
I don't know if I was really in the mood for saving at 16, but at least
if you hadn't known, if it had just been coming out and you weren't really, you know, what would just have been happening on your behalf, really.
If it's automatic as well and it feels like tax and national insurance that comes off before you even get it, then you kind of don't think about it as much.
That's what I always think. You know, if anything that comes off your salary before you get it, you just don't miss it.
It was never mine.
It was never yours, exactly. So,
on the flip side of that, how late is too late to start a pension?
Well, I don't think anything is too late anymore. Now that pension freedoms have come in, so the flexibilities that were introduced in 2015 mean that you no longer have to purchase an annuity, you know, a form of income in retirement. You can actually fully cash out and take the money back. So actually, even later on, even if you're in your 50s and you've just started going into pension savings for the first time, you're still getting the benefit of an employer contribution. You're still getting the benefit of tax relief. And actually, it's now quite flexible about what you can do with the money. So you can either take and cash it, as I've just said, or you can go into a sort of what's called a flexible drawdown and take the income as you need it. So I don't think it's ever too late now. You know, at one time towards an annuity we would have said actually you've left it too late, but not now.
Perfect. We've only got 6 minutes left, so do keep your comments and questions coming for Jackie, myself and Nyomi, though we're mainly relying on Jackie for the answers. And you could win an Amazon Echo Dot. We've got a follow-up question about the child benefits, just for anyone who might have joined since we discussed that. This was about how even if you are above the pay threshold to receive child benefits, you should still be applying and basically letting the government know that you would like them. They'll decline them, but you still get your national insurance.
You get your national insurance.
See, you learn more when you have to regurgitate it. So Emma then, to follow up, says, can you apply for child benefit retrospectively? I did not know about that, none of us did, and did not know applying we would not qualify for it. And you get what you know.
You can apply retrospectively. There is a time bar, I can't remember what it is, but go on to the government website. If you key into your Google search engine, state pension qualification, something like that, it'll take you straight into the part of the government website and it actually tells you how to do that. So there is a form that you can complete that will tell you what your state pension projection is, but it'll also tell you how you can claim back. And it might be 3 years, I can't quite remember, but because they've changed the rules a few times, but you can definitely go back if you've missed it and make sure that you get that corrected.
Well, I know what I'm doing this evening.
Everybody's logging off and going, how do I get it back?
I've been back in the workplace 3 years, so fingers crossed it's above that threshold. And Kay, probably the perfect question to wrap us up. Where can I go for good advice? Yes, we'll be here with Jackie.
Actually, there's lots of places that you can go. If you're working for an employer, actually there will be a pension provider there, and that's a good starting point. There'll be information that you can get there. More importantly, it's most likely to be free, and you'll get a lot of support. There are also quite a lot of government websites, the Money Advice Service and so on, where you can go on, and again there's a lot of information, and actually there's quite a lot of access to advice through there as well, depending on where you are and how close you are to retirement. So both of those sources, I think, are a way for you to go and get support. You can get independent financial advice and get an advisor, and again you will pay for that. That does come at a cost, but that is something that can be a really useful thing to do, particularly for people as they get closer to retirement.
And if you're not someone who is at work, so we had a couple of women who said that they've either on a career break or they're currently a housewife, can they go to their bank, or is there somebody on the high street?
Yeah, the banks actually are not really providing a huge amount of support in retirement currently because of a lot of changes that were made to legislation. But I would start with the Money Advice Service, and you can actually get an appointment with somebody at Citizens Advice through that service.
Perfect. Nyomi, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just I've got a lot of food for thought here to go away and think about, haven't I?
Right, well, on that note, we are done. Thank you all so much. We had so many questions, and I'm sorry to anyone we didn't get through. This has been really informative and fantastic, and hopefully we've managed to help you too. Thanks very much for tuning in. Bye-bye.